Hey folks, I'm Sir Vainglory here with Anatomy of a Battle number 14, and I'm recording this on the day that the second wave DLC was announced, and I was quite surprised by that given the amount of negativity that surrounded the game in the last few months. I suppose I was expecting Steel Division to be left to quietly pass away in a corner somewhere, so I'm pleased to see the company appear to be still interested in developing the game, but I'm not sure how I feel about this particular DLC. I've no problem at all buying DLC if it genuinely adds something new to the gameplay, and I've also no problem with the price tag of £8, but I don't know whether Second Wave is just bringing some cosmetic changes. I reckon you guys are all fans of the game since you're still here watching these videos, so I'd be interested to know your thoughts if you want to leave anything down in the comment section below. Anyway, as usual, this is a 1v1 ranked battle. This one's between the 3rd Armored Division and the 352nd Infanterie. This is again a new battle group that I've created and I'm giving it a try out. And we're on the Cote 112 map, which is a map I've played on a few times, and it's one that I quite like. It has this hill on the left that's defensible and gives great vision over the battlefield, and my opponents have always rushed to take it, but they then just sit on it, and it's so out of the way that it's pretty worthless as long as you stay out of range of any guns that they might have positioned up there. As I'm facing an infantry division in this battle, I don't expect my opponent to make much of a push against me, but think he's more likely to sit in a defendable position and try to blunt my attack. So I'm going to go with a plan that's similar to the approach I took in my Anatomy of a Battle 5 video when I fought in this map with the 15th Infantry Division. So my plan is to push a force quickly along the road on the right, get into the town towards the rear and hold there. To support that force, I want to get an anti-tank gun or a tank into the tree line up on the ridge overlooking the town that can fire into the flank of any counter-attack. That will give me control of a good portion of the map and hopefully force my opponent to commit reinforcements to trying to dislodge me rather than strengthening other parts of the battlefield. For the centre and left of the map, I'm going to start with just some light screening forces that will let me see where my opponent is advancing, and will reinforce those areas as necessary as the battle goes on. My starting forces, the main force on the right hand side is going to be 3 mechanised infantry companies, an M20 command car, a scout section and 2 M5A1 light tanks. In the centre I'm going to have another scout section and an M1 gun, anti-tank gun, and covering the left we'll have another mechanised infantry company and another scout section. So as usual I start by pushing the recce sections forward to give me an idea of what I'm facing where. My main force is holding positions behind trees at the road on the right. The M1 anti-tank guns covering the 2 roads in the centre, and that will eventually push forward to the tree line just overlooking the town. And on the left I've got the recce section recce jeep keeping an eye up on the hill, and the mech infantry squad in a position where it can react to cover the centre if necessary. With the recce section on the right in a position to get vision along the road, I now begin moving my vehicles and my main force forward behind the cover of the trees. The scouts are well advanced and there doesn't seem to be any immediate threat to my advance, and I bring in an oyster just to give me a bit more information on what I might be facing. All is quiet in the centre. I've got my M1 covering the 2 roads and the scouts again well forward, but there doesn't seem to be any sign of movement. And up in the hill again it's all quiet, although I'm pretty sure there is a force already in the trees. I'm just keeping an eye out for any movement there. And we don't have to wait too long before we spot an Osttrooping squad and an IG-18 moving up through the trees, and also get a glimpse of another squad in the forest to the left. So the recce jeep engages the Osttrooping, and when they go to ground it then switches its attention to the IG-18, starts working on that. However, it's not the only IG-18 up in the hilltop, and a second one appears in the trees there and takes out the jeep. Over on the right, it turns out my force wasn't that well concealed behind the trees, as an infantry Geschütze 18 engages my M5A1, and 2 Junker 87s also come in and make an aerial attack and they hit my force hard. Their attack suppresses a couple of my infantry squads and sends all of my vehicles into full retreat. I'm guessing, since there's a couple of field guns up in the hill, that the German has a reasonable amount of troops there too, but my recce squad hasn't spotted anything pushing forward, so I decide to move my infantry and M3 towards the crossroads so that he's more concerned with me potentially pushing past him and he might hold back. I'm pretty much committed to having to go through with the attack on the right, so I push my recce and infantry squad forward to hold while the armour vehicles recover their morale. So we're halfway through phase A. My troops on the right are recovering and moving forward again. In the centre there's been no sign of Germans, so I'm moving the M1 AT gun further forward. And I lost the recce jeep on the hilltop, but my infantry is still giving him something to think about on the left. And I think there is a force on the hill, another by the centre crossroads, and his troops in the town. On the left, my M3 is able to engage one of the IG-18s and takes out the gun, and Mirillis Action keeps an eye on the other IG-18 as it repositions. So I move my M3 and my infantry in towards cover, and I bring in a P51 Mustang to strafe the second IG. I've brought in an M21 mortar that begins to lace a smoke screen so that I can advance my vehicles, and I'm expecting that as they move forward and the command car gets into range, that will help to unpin the infantry that are out there in the open. And there was a German tank on the road behind the town, so I make sure that the smoke screen spreads out to cover off any long range fire from the left hand side there. But the smoke can't do anything about the return of the two Stukas, and they make another attack on my forces, again causing quite a bit of suppression. My P51 was still in mission, but it wasn't able to engage the Stukas until after they had made their attack. And despite the Stuka attack, I'm still able to continue with the advance on the ground, and the M21 is now shelling the German infantry. So I have positive map control, despite the huge bulge in the left, due to the fact that I don't have any real forces over there, but I know that I can deal with that. My concern at the moment is the town, and as the smoke dissipates, we spot a Pak 38, and that becomes the priority target. And it's engaged by all of the machine guns in the vehicles and quickly pinned and destroyed. And the Osttroppen squad and the command squad that was in the building behind it both quickly surrendered to my infantry as well. And the Germans also had an IG-18 towards the rear of the town, but my M21's shelling that, and we seem to be in good control for now. Up in the centre though, my recce jeep is taken out by a Pak 38 near the crossroads as it's pushed forward. My attacking forces push into the town and they destroy the IG-18 and an Osttroppen squad, which was the final units that they had holding the town. And my M21 then targets a Panzer 35 that's sitting beyond the town. My M5 should have the advantage on it, but I want to try and get some suppression on it in advance. And the M5 does manage to take it out in one shot. It's lovely to see the front line marker falling back like that, and it looks like he's now got nothing left on the right hand side. So I move my units forward into positions to dominate the open ground. I think going any further would be too difficult to hold, so I'm content to try and dig in where I am and turn to other parts of the battlefield. I believe that he has a force holding the crossroads and want to make sure that he's not pushing anything forward from there. So I bring in an Oyster to scout that area, and I bring in an M5A1 and an M4A1 on the left. I plan to advance them along the road on the left below the hill and then swing them round to fire down onto the infantry that he will have in the woods near the crossroads. We've watched Panzer 35s and Panzer Jaeger 35s moving along the road on the right as reinforcements, and one of the Stukas also returns and attacks my units in the town again. I'm pretty certain that he doesn't have any units that can give him vision beyond the town, so I lay smoke hoping that he'll think I've brought more units up and that I'm about to advance again. and just trying to buy more time for my units to recover their morale. And it would also give the M1 time to move up. You can see it moving through the trees there, so any sort of delay by him will give that gun a chance to get into position for some flanking shots on him. I've now got a recce section moving up in the centre to check that it's still clear there, with a couple of infantry squads following up. M1's almost in position in the ridge to cover the flank of the town, and I want to make sure that it's not attacked from behind by forces that he'll have positioned at the crossroads. As my recce jeep reaches its position, another Pak 38 opens up from the trees at the crossroads, and the driver sort of shits the bed, stalls the jeep, and it's taken out. Back down at the town, my M21's now shelling the infantry that followed the tanks in, and the German tanks do seem to be holding position behind the smoke as I'd hoped, so my ploy seems to have worked. There's a Panzer III command tank moving across the field towards our position, so I send an M5 right to target it. When they spot each other, they engage without doing any damage, but the Panzerjäger 35 down by the town takes out my other M5. So the German could now sit and have his vehicle shell my troops in the town, so I'll have my M21 lay more smoke to stop him from doing that. He does begin to push his armour forward, so my M1 up in the ridge begins to engage them and dominate Panzerjäger 35. And I bring in a P38 to try and deal with the Panzer III, but its attack is woeful. But my M5 spots a second Panzer III moving up, and it's able to take it out with one shot. A wee bit of satisfaction there. But it's short-lived though, as the original Panzer III pops out from the bushes and wins the race to get the first shot off. Then it's a magic disappearing tank. My M1 up in the ridge though is doing a great job in the Germans, but it's totally isolated. And I'm really wishing I'd brought the Sherman and infantry in on the right instead of the left, as a push by a tank at this point would probably have been ideal. The German sends a Stuka to target my M1, so I throw in a P51 to counter it. Again, the Stuka is able to get its attack in before the Mustang hits it, and then when the P51 swings round for the kill, Focke-Wulf 190 arrives and shoots down my Mustang, but at least the M1 survived. In the centre, a couple of Panzerjäger 35s and a heavy machine gun have moved up, and they begin engaging my infantry in the trees. So the combination of fire from my M1 and M21 and the units in the town has stalled the German counter-attack, and it's now become a firefight. My troops are being worn down, but I'm moving up an M4A3 to bolster the defence. In the centre I've lost my M3s, but continue to push the infantry forward, and the M4A1 and M5A1 are moving up on the left to provide support as planned. I lose my M21 to a Panzerjäger 35 right at the back of the town. I managed to have line of sight on it, and with the Germans recovering morale and my infantry exposed, it looks like they're about to be destroyed, so I begin pulling my M20 command car back. I have the Sherman moving up there that will be able to link up with the M20, but I don't think it's going to be in time to save the infantry. My M1 continues to fire down from the ridge, but my initial joy at the impact has now turned into frustration because it's only managed one kill. But just as I'm thinking that, it manages to do the job and get a second. Moving in now, the right's beginning to look a bit more secure, particularly when it gets a nice shot through the buildings there and takes out the Panzer III. So the Sherman and the M20 begin laying on the fire, and my remaining infantry are also still in the fight. The M20 is able to suppress the Osttruppen. Meanwhile, my infantry in the centre are now heavily engaged with the Germans and suffering badly. My tanks have arrived nearby, but the presence of the Panzerjägers prevents me from moving the tanks up to provide fire support. So we're just over halfway through phase B now, and I've got a good lead established. Just about holding them off in the town, but badly need reinforced, so I'm moving up a second anti-tank gun, this time an M5, to fire into the flank. You can see there's a whole load of infantry being moved up now to reinforce the town, so my plan to get him to commit there is working. But he does wipe out the last of my infantry in the town, although I still have the M20 and the Sherman, and they should be enough to prevent the Austroop from advancing. My M3 that's bringing up the M5 gun is fired on by a Pak-38 while it's moving forward. Meanwhile, I'm moving my tanks into better positions to try and engage the Panzerjäger 35s so that they can then attack the Germans in the centre. Second Pak-38 begins firing the M3, M5, but the gun's able to dismount without being destroyed. I have previously suppressed M3 returning to the fight, followed by an M5A1, and they're going to try and engage the Pak from a distance. And in a real example of effective use of air power, I've brought in a P-38 to target the second Pak-38, although it's only able to pin it down. I'd split my M5A1 off to move around the trees looking for flanking shots in the Panzerjäger 35s. It gets a shot off and breaks the tracks in one of them, but they both return fire and take out the M5. I should have tried to do better coordinating this tank's attack with the Shermans. I hadn't given the M5 anti-tank gun any orders since it dismounted, so it engages one of the Pak-38s since it's screened from the units at the town by the trees. The M1's still hard at work though, and it continues to fire on the Panzer 35 and damages it. And in the centre, the mobile Panzerjäger 35 advances towards my infantry, who attack it with their bazooka, and the Sherman also engages the tank destroyer, and it pulls back but is destroyed by the bazooka. My Sherman's then hit by an attack from the Stuka again and forced back. I send my Mustang after the Ju-87, but it suffers from heavy anti-aircraft fire from the hilltop, and it's then bounced by the Focke-Wulf 190 as it gets to the end of the map. My M5 continues to shoot at the Pak-38 since there's no real armoured threat to the town, and I now have some recon squads and infantry squads moving up to support my own armour. My M5 finally takes out one of the Pak-38s though, and I move it into the trees to cover the town. I'd spotted a Panzer III command tank being moved over towards the left, so I send the Sherman over to intercept it, and they trade a few shots before the Panzer eventually pulls back. I lost my recce in the town to the advancing German infantry, but I did have my own infantry now moving up to take possession of the buildings. You can see the German grenadiers have kept position in the woods there, so my troops should have the advantage being in the buildings. However, the Germans also have another infantry Geschütze 18 moving up, so I really need some infantry support of my own. Just a wee howitzer would be lovely just to shell that mass of German infantry in that woods. That's not a problem for the German though, because I've spotted a couple of artillery units being brought in as reinforcements over the last few minutes. There's another one there. That spot where I've got my anti-tank guns is brilliant for keeping an eye on reinforcements moving in. Here in the centre, the M3 that bought in the M5 gun has recovered its morale and it's now flanking the crossroads. The M5A1 and the M3 in the main road are also targeting the troops in there. So with his armour having been fought off, the German decided to soften up my troops in the town with a Nebelwerfer. It's not too bad, but a couple of half-tracks are forced to fall back. We are still holding for the moment, mostly thanks to the Sherman and the command car. But in a good example of use of combined arms, the Nebelwerfer attack's followed up by an HS-129, which takes out the Sherman and also causes the command car to fall back. I'd called in a P-38 to hit the Nebelwerfer, but its attack is absolutely woeful, doesn't even manage to suppress it. And the Lightning's then lucky to get off the map before being shot down by a Focke-Wulf. Only just manages to evade it. The HS-129 is still in mission though, and it attacks my M3 and my M5A1 that were in the centre, firing on the infantry in the woods, takes both of them out. And it then swung around and I thought it was going for my M4A1, but luckily the angles were wrong, and it ended up destroying another M3 before it ran out of ammo. But I'm now in a precarious position across the map. Fortunately, the German either has overcommitted in artillery and aircraft, or simply doesn't have the armour in reserve and has to push forward with just infantry on the right. And the sentry could overrun me if he took out the M4A1, but I think the HS-129 was probably the only unit that could have done that right now. For some reason he still hasn't advanced on the left, so I'm sending 2 mechanised infantry squads and an M5A1 up just to give me a presence there and ensure that I stay above 50% map control. I know that there are Germans in the forest, but I've no idea how much he has there. The IG-18 that I was strafing about 15 minutes ago is still active though, and it engages the M5. And on top of that, a Junkers 88 comes in and attacks it, and its heavy bombs take out the tank. And to make things worse, I think there are 2 Panzer IIIs moving to the left now, but my Sherman is able to force one of them to fall back, and I'm thinking that the German plan was to use the tanks to support a push with his units in the trees on the hilltop. Down in the right flank, the German infantry has recovered its morale and is able to move out the trees into the town, and eliminates the last of my defenders in there with support from the IG-18. I pull my M20 command card back towards the M3 so that it can provide mutual support, and I queue up some more infantry reinforcements, as you can see. I'd hoped that the German morale might still be a bit brittle and that the M3 might be able to hold them off for a while, so I moved it forward to lay down some suppressing fire. But the Pioneers, as it turned out, were pretty strong still, and they destroyed the M3 with a Gewalt-Ladung grenade. So my M20 was left isolated. My Sherman in the centre has finally achieved its mission of providing suppressing fire on the German infantry by the crossroads. Better late than never, I suppose. While up in the left I'd given my M3s and infantry orders to advance in the forest and engage anything they found. Because the other units were suppressed earlier, one M3 has advanced much quicker, and I now discover that there's a significant force in the trees. And in addition to that, the Panzer III that got past my Sherman has now arrived, and it engages my M3, and it makes, well, pretty short work of it after a bit of interesting driving. So all of my forces on the right have now been wiped out, but the reinforcements are moving forward, and my anti-tank guns still cover the flank of the town. The German infantry in the centre doesn't seem to be advancing at all, and I have a Calliope moving up to deal with them, so my M4A1 is moving left to engage the Panzer III on the hill. So it gets line of sight on it quite quickly. It engages infantry in the woods with its machine gun and takes out the Panzer with its first shot from its main gun. So the Calliope reached firing position and unloaded a barrage on the German infantry at the crossroads. It looks very impressive, and you'd think that nothing would be able to survive that. But having watched it, it's supposed to be focused on that group of trees just on the left hand side of the screen. But the rocket fall is actually quite widespread, so it might actually be better just to use normal howitzers rather than that rocket attack. Something I might want to look at, do a wee bit of analysis on it and find out whether these are actually worthwhile. My anti-tank guns spot STRIX 3 moving in, and they both engage it and manage to force it to fall back after a couple of shots. However, a SIG 33 field gun by the town then fires in their position, and it manages to finish off the M1. The Germans send in the Stuka to target the Calliope, which is a bit of a waste given how long it takes to reload, but it does at least prevent it from moving in and using its main gun on the infantry. And in the distance you can see that a second Stug has appeared, and it manages to take out the M5. I have fresh infantry and M3s moving in on the right now, where the Germans are beginning to advance, And in the centre, the survivors of the Calliope barrage have wiped out my infantry and also seem to be pushing forward, with the two STUGs probably moving up in support. The German pioneers tried to push forward from the town despite concentrated fire from my M3s and infantry, and I also have an M15 anti-aircraft gun in there which wreaks a fair bit of havoc. It targets the SIG 33 and manages to pin it down. But as you can hear, the Germans bring in a Junkers 88 to attack the troops on the right flank, and again its heavy bombs do significant damage. Over on the left, my M4A1 and M15 continue to hold position there, attacking the forces in the hill and making sure that I keep some sort of presence in that area. And in the centre I've rushed in a single mech infantry squad to support the Calliope. It's fired on by a STUG and forced to retreat, while the Calliope fires on the advancing infantry. I was quite glad that the two STUGs stayed back there, shooting at the infantry rather than heading up and taking out my Sherman on the left. Down in the right flank I'd brought in a couple of M4A3s to support my troops, and they were quickly involved in the fight. And with the never-ending German air power, another Junkers 88 came in and this time attacked the Calliope, forcing it to fall back. On the left I no longer had sight of the top of the hill, but my M21 was firing on what I thought was German positions, but it turned out that they had actually begun to advance, so I was firing on empty ground. But you can clearly see what's happening down in the right flank though, where my tanks and half-tracks holding back the German advance and beginning to wear down the infantry. In the centre the STUGs are still sitting back shelling my infantry squad, and I've got the Calliope falling back but towards a resupply truck, which is fortunate. And over on the left hand side, the duel between the Panzer III and my Sherman continues, and both of them slugging it out. And the Stuka comes in again, but for once it's actually forced to fall back by my anti-aircraft fire before it can go ahead with this attack. And down in the right, having caught all his infantry out in the open, we've wiped it out and we're now pushing forward again. And we see another Stug 3 advancing. But I've got two Shermans against the one Stug, and the outcome's not really in any doubt. Over on the left I'd brought in a couple of mech infantry squads and Sherman 105, and they engaged two German anti-aircraft units up on the ridge, began to advance. So during the battle I thought it was a pretty close run thing, but when you look at the neutral view, in terms of the weight of forces, I did have a strong advantage. Plenty of armour and infantry being able to move forward, and I think the Germans was pretty much exhausted in terms of their reinforcements, having resorting to bringing in pioneers and artillery units at this point. So the last few units were taken out, and this time I got a clear victory, reaching 2,500 points within the time limit. So you could say that my strategy of pushing hard on the right and forcing the German to commit his reinforcements there worked. You could also say that if he hadn't been completely passive in the centre and on the left, that I'd have had real problems. But I could have pushed in more troops to the centre and left if need be. As you saw at the end, it looked like the German had committed all his infantry and had little left to throw against me towards the end, whereas I was able to bring in fresh mech infantry in both flanks with tank support, and in terms of the balance of forces, all he really had that he could threaten me with at the end was the Stugs in the centre. So as usual there were things I could have done better, particularly trying to counter his aircraft. However, I don't think I'll ever fight the perfect battle. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please leave me a comment and rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, and I hope to see you again next time. Cheers.